In the summer of 1958, in a small railroad town in southern Indiana, a boy named Tommy Kepler stood on his back porch after breakfast with exactly 1 dime in the pocket of his dungarees. 10 cents. That was his whole fortune for the day. His mother, Ruth, didn't ask where he was going. She didn't need to. She only said, "Be home when the streetlights come on." And Tommy vanished into the morning until 9 that night. What that one boy did in that one day between the dime and the streetlights is a summer a whole generation lived and almost nobody wrote down. We'll come back to Tommy at the end and to what that dime bought him. These are the things your grandmother knew and your grandchildren will never see. Subscribe and let's bring that summer back, one memory at a time. Before we start, remember this. There was a girl in Ohio who ran a lemonade stand for 2 summers and bought her own bicycle with nickels. There was a boy in Georgia who built a soapbox cart out of a busted baby buggy and won every race on his street. And there was a whole neighborhood in Pennsylvania that played one game of kick the can that ran off and on from June to Labor Day. No parents, no coaches, no screens. Just kids running until the streetlights came on. So let's count them down one by one from the top. Number 18, the lawn sprinkler on a hot July afternoon. In July of 1956 in Levittown, New York, a boy named Danny Marchetti and his 3 sisters waited on the front lawn while their father, Sal, hooked up a brass Rain King sprinkler he'd bought at the hardware store for $2.98. When the water hit, they screamed like the house was on fire. Barefoot, bathing suits, grass stuck to their heels, running back and forth through that arc of cold well water until their lips turned blue. No pool, no air conditioning, just a hose, a sprinkler, and a July sun that meant business. Sal would sit on the stoop with a bottle of Rheingold and watch them, and Ruth would call them in for supper wet as fish. There wasn't a child in America who needed more than that. A $2 sprinkler was a swimming pool if you were 7 years old. Number 17, the drive-in movie In Your Pajamas. On a Saturday night in August of 1959 in Muncie, Indiana, Harold and Betty Vaughn loaded their 4 kids in the back of a Ford station wagon in their pajamas, drove out to the Skyway Drive-In on Route 3, and paid $1 per carload at the gate. $1. For all 6 of them. The little ones fell asleep on a quilt in the tailgate before the second feature. The speaker hung on the driver's window and crackled. Betty had packed popcorn in a paper grocery sack because a bag at the concession was 15 cents and they had 4 mouths. Harold said the sky was a better ceiling than any theater ever built. And when he backed out at midnight with all 4 kids asleep, he never once asked what the movie was about. The picture wasn't the point. The night was. Number 16, sidewalk games with whatever you had. In the summer of 1954, on Elm Street in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a girl named Marlene Kowalski owned exactly 1 piece of blue sidewalk chalk, a set of 10 metal jacks with a red rubber ball, and a jump rope her uncle had cut from clothesline. That was her whole arsenal, and it ran her entire summer. Hopscotch grids from the mailbox to the corner, jacks on the front step, onesies, twosies, all the way to tensies. Jump rope rhymes she and the other girls made up as they went. A piece of chalk cost a penny at the 5 and dime. A set of jacks, 35 cents. That was the whole entertainment budget for a summer, and she never once said she was bored. Bored was a word for children who had too much and knew too little. Number 15, trading baseball cards on the front porch. In July of 1957 in St. Louis, Missouri, 2 boys named Bobby Hensley and Frankie Delgado sat on Bobby's front porch through the hottest part of the afternoon, trading Topps cards spread out on the boards between them. A pack cost 5 cents and came with a slab of pink bubble gum that could break a tooth. Bobby had 2 Stan Musials and traded one for a Mickey Mantle, plus a Yogi Berra, plus a stick of gum. They shook on it like 2 bankers. Frankie's mother brought out a pitcher of Kool-Aid, 1 packet, 2 cents, and they drank it warm because the ice was gone by 2 o'clock. Neither one of them knew that Mantle Card would one day be worth more than his father's Buick. They only knew it was a good trade. If you're over 65 and you're listening to this, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Do you remember the smell of hot asphalt on a July afternoon? The way the tar softened at the edge of the road and stuck to your sneakers? Do you remember the sound of a screen door slapping shut behind you at 9 in the morning and not slapping shut again until supper time? That sound is gone from most of America now. But it's not gone from you. You are the last people alive who lived that summer. And that's why we're telling it. Keep listening. Number 14, sleeping out in the backyard under the stars. In August of 1960, in Marietta, Georgia, a boy named Wesley Turnbull and his cousin Ray strung an old Army surplus canvas tent between 2 pines in Wesley's backyard. The tent had cost his father $4 at a war surplus store in Atlanta. They took 2 wool blankets, a flashlight with weak D-cell batteries, a jar of peanut butter, and a sleeve of saltines, and they were set for the night. They lay on their backs and named every constellation they thought they knew, most of them wrong. A screech owl scared them so bad they nearly ran for the house at midnight, but they didn't, because running for the house meant admitting you were still a little kid. And out there under those Georgia stars, they weren't little kids anymore. They were men of the frontier. For one night. Number 13, fishing with a cane pole at the pond. In June of 1953, in Tupelo, Mississippi, an 8-year-old named Junior Ellsworth walked a mile down a dirt road with a cane pole his grandfather had cut for him. A hook that cost 2 cents at the feed store, and a Maxwell House coffee can full of night crawlers he dug from behind the outhouse. He caught 7 bream and a small catfish before noon. He carried them home on a forked willow stick, and his grandmother cleaned them and fried them in cornmeal for supper. That was the whole day. A pole, a hook, a can of worms, and patience nobody had to teach him. His grandfather said it once and never had to say it again. A boy who can wait for a fish can wait for anything else life throws at him. Number 12, chasing the ice cream truck down the block. In the summer of 1961, in Dearborn, Michigan, a boy named Petey Kowalczyk could hear the Good Humor truck coming from 4 blocks away. That tinny bell floating over the rooftops, and every kid on the street stopped whatever they were doing and ran. A creamsicle was 10 cents, a toasted almond bar, 15, a cup of chocolate ice cream with a wooden spoon, a nickel. Petey kept a Prince Albert tobacco tin in his sock drawer with the coins he earned pulling weeds for the widow next door, a nickel a session. If he had a dime that afternoon, he ran. If he didn't, he still ran, hoping. Because sometimes the driver, a big Polish man named Mr. Kaminski, would slip a broken bar to a boy for free. A nickel could make you run 4 blocks in the hot sun. That's how much a nickel used to be. Number 11, kick the can, tag, and hide and seek past dark. In the summer of 1955 on Sycamore Lane in Peoria, Illinois, the neighborhood kids ran one game of kick the can that lasted off and on, from the last day of school until Labor Day. All they needed was an empty Campbell's soup can, a street light for home base, and a truce with the man on the corner who yelled if you cut through his hedge. 22 kids played on the biggest nights. The youngest was 5, the oldest was 13. Nobody kept score, nobody had a coach. When it got dark, the game got better because now you could really hide. Mothers stood on porches and hollered names down the block, and one by one the children peeled off toward supper. That was the summer economy of an American neighborhood. an empty can, a streetlight, and each other. Number 10. Building a fort or a treehouse from scrap lumber. In July of 1959, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 3 boys, Kenny Prochaska, his brother Dale, and a neighbor kid named Butch, built a treehouse in a big bur oak behind the Prochaska garage. The lumber came from a torn-down chicken coop. The nails, borrowed one handful at a time from Mr. Prochaska's coffee can in the garage. The roof was tar paper. Kenny's father let him take for free from a job site. Total cost, $0. Total value, an entire kingdom. There was a rope ladder they pulled up when adults approached. There was a cigar box hidden in the wall with a playing card, a jackknife, and a nickel. It stood in that oak for 11 years, long after the boys had left for the service. A boy's first house he builds himself. He never quite forgets the smell of that pine. A 2019 study out of Boston College looked at the free play hours of American children across 3 generations. In 1955, the average boy or girl aged 7 to 12 had over 6 hours of unsupervised outdoor play per summer day. By 1985, that number was 3. By 2015, it was under 40 minutes, and most of that was on a screen. 6 hours, down to 40 minutes. That's not a change in childhood. That's the end of a kind of childhood. And you, listening right now, are one of the last living witnesses to what 6 hours a day used to look like. That's why this matters. Number 9, building a soapbox cart from junk. In August of 1957, in Wheeling, West Virginia, a 12-year-old named Eugene Barlow built a soapbox cart out of a scrap 2x6, 4 wheels off a broken baby buggy his mother let him take from the shed, a wooden apple crate for a seat, and a length of clothesline for steering. Total cost, 1 dime for a pack of finishing nails at the hardware store. He and his friends carried it to the top of Chaplin Street, which was the steepest hill in town, and Eugene bombed down it at what he swore was 50 miles an hour. He wiped out at the bottom, tore his dungarees, split his lip, and walked home grinning like he'd won the Indianapolis 500. A dime and a hill. That was a boyhood. Number 8, swimming at the creek with a rope swing. In the summer of 1954, outside Chattanooga, Tennessee, 6 boys walked a mile through a cow pasture to a bend in Suck Creek, where somebody's older brother had tied a hemp rope to a sycamore branch that hung out over the deep water. There wasn't a lifeguard. There wasn't a parent. There wasn't a swimsuit among them. They swam in cut-off dungarees or nothing at all. The oldest boy, Ellis Whitcomb, was 14 and the unofficial captain. He set the rules. You didn't jump if a girl walked by, you didn't jump if a snapping turtle was on the far bank, and you never, ever told your mother where you'd been. Because if she knew, the summer would end. The creek raised more American boys than any YMCA pool ever did. Number 7, penny candy at the corner 5 and dime. In June of 1958, in Ashtabula, Ohio, a girl named Nadine Sikorsky walked into Woolworth's on Main Street with a single dime clutched in her fist and stood at the candy counter for a full 15 minutes making her choices. Root beer barrels, 1 penny each, Mary Jane's, 1 penny, wax lips, 2 cents, a little paper sack of Bit-O honey, 5 cents. Miss Ellen behind the counter, who'd worked there since 1937, waited patient as a saint while Nadine pointed. The dime bought her a full paper sack. She made it last all day, sitting on the curb outside, working through 1 piece at a time, and she still had 2 root beer barrels in her pocket when she went to bed. A dime, 1 hour of picking, and a whole afternoon of small joy. Sweetness used to cost almost nothing. Number 6, the lemonade stand on the corner. In July of 1956, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, an 8-year-old named Peggy Ann Bledsoe set up a card table on the corner of Oak and Vine with a hand-lettered cardboard sign that said lemonade 5 cents. Her mother had spotted her 1 lemon, 1 cup of sugar, and a pitcher. Peggy stirred it herself with a wooden spoon in a Pyrex pitcher, no ice, warm from the tap. She sold 13 cups that afternoon. 65 cents in a Prince Albert tobacco tin. Her father, Ray, when he came home from the tool and die shop, gave her a whole nickel for a cup he didn't even drink. She ran 2 more stands that summer and by August had $2.40 saved. That was the down payment, in a girl's mind, on a used Schwinn bicycle. A nickel cup on a hot corner. That was capitalism, taught by a lemon. There's a phrase your mother used to say that you may not have heard in 50 years. She'd stand at the screen door with a dish towel in her hand and say, "Go outside and find something to do." That was the whole instruction. Find something to do. Not here's a screen, not here's a schedule, not here's a class I signed you up for. Find something to do. And you did. You always did. A generation of American children were raised on those 6 words. And every one of the memories in this list is what happened after your mother said them. Number 5, the pickup baseball game in a vacant lot. In August of 1955, on a weed-choked lot on the corner of 3rd and Maple in Toledo, Ohio, 9 boys and 1 stubborn girl named Sharon Klepacki showed up every afternoon at 1 o'clock with a taped-up ball, 1 cracked Louisville Slugger, and a first baseman's mitt so flat you could fold it in a back pocket. Bases were a flat rock, a folded jacket, a paper sack, and home plate was a scrap of cardboard. Teams were picked by 2 captains, hand over hand up the bat handle, last grip picks first. No umpires, no uniforms, no parents in folding chairs, just 9 innings or 6 or however many they got in before somebody's mother called them for supper. That taped-up ball cost 25 cents new at the dime store 3 years earlier. It had been retaped 7 times. It was the most valuable object on the lot. Number 4, riding bikes all over town with no helmet and no plan. In the summer of 1960, in Beloit, Wisconsin, a boy named Ricky Sundstrom left his driveway at 9 in the morning on a used red Schwinn his father had bought at a garage sale for $8. He rode to the river. He rode to the drugstore, where a Coke at the fountain was 10 cents. He rode to his cousin's house on the other side of town, 3 miles by road. He rode with his best friend Carl to the railroad yard to watch the freights come through. Not one adult on earth, at any minute of that day, knew exactly where he was. And nobody thought it strange. That was the freedom. $8 of used bicycle bought a boy the whole town. And the whole town in 1960 was safe enough to let him have it. Number 3, doing chores for a nickel, then vanishing for the day. In July of 1957 in Sedalia, Missouri, a 9-year-old named Clyde Hoffman got a nickel from his mother for pulling weeds in the tomato patch, a dime from Mrs. Osterman next door for sweeping her porch, and a quarter from his Uncle Vern for cleaning out the truck bed. 40 cents by 10 in the morning. Then he was gone. Nobody knew where. His mother didn't call. His mother didn't worry. His mother had 4 other children and a load of laundry and knew Clyde would turn up when he was hungry. He spent a nickel on a knee-high grape soda, a nickel on a Baby Ruth, and buried the other 30 cents in a mason jar under the corner of the porch. That jar, by the end of the summer, had $4.80 in it. That's how boys used to become men. Number 2, catching fireflies in a mason jar at dusk. In June of 1958, in Bloomington, Indiana, a girl named Louise Rademacher and her little brother Tommy stood barefoot in the wet grass just after sunset, holding a ball mason jar their mother had lent them from the pantry. Their father had taken an ice pick and punched 6 holes in the tin lid at the kitchen table. They caught 11 fireflies that night. They set the jar on the nightstand between their beds and watched it blink slow, on and off. until they fell asleep. "Come morning," their mother said. "Now, you take that jar outside and you let every one of them go." And they did. A ball jar cost about a dime at the hardware store. What it held was worth more than any nightlight Sears ever sold. Some summers, the light came from the ground up. And that brings us to number one, the one rule that ran the whole summer. Come home only when the streetlights flicker on or your mother's voice carries across the yard. That was it. That was the whole schedule. No practice, no lessons, no pickup at 4, no screen, nothing but time to be a kid. In every one of these towns, in every one of these summers, from Tupelo to Toledo to Beloit, the streetlights were the clock. 10 cents in the pocket, a screen door slap in the morning, and the whole town yours until that first bulb flickered pink and then yellow at the corner. When it did, every child on the block turned toward home like a bird toward a nest. They didn't have much. They had less than you think. But they had the one thing this century can't seem to buy back. They had the whole day and nobody watching. That was the real American summer. And it was free. Now let's come back to Tommy Kepler, that boy on the back porch in Indiana with the dime in his pocket. Here's how he spent it. 5 cents on a pack of baseball cards from the drugstore. 3 cents on a root beer barrel at the 5 and dime. And 2 cents he dropped into a Prince Albert tobacco tin under his bed, where by Labor Day he'd saved $1.40. Enough to buy his mother a small blue glass vase for her birthday in September. She kept that vase on the kitchen sill for 41 years. That's what a dime and a summer used to build. Which of these did your family do? Tell me in the comments below. I read every one. And if this brought back a summer you thought you'd forgotten, subscribe, and we'll bring another one back next week.